Imagine a city with walls so thick 4-horse chariots could race on their summit, now crumbled to dust. Picture a library, said to hold every scroll of ancient wisdom vanishing in flames and whispers of lost knowledge. Envision engineers from 4,000 years ago crafting stones so precisely that not even a razor blade can slip between them, their methods still a baffling puzzle. These aren't myths. They are glimpses into a past filled with wonders that have slipped through the fingers of time. Marvels that go far beyond the famous 7 we all know. Get ready to explore 10 incredible lost wonders that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the ancient world. Number 10. The skyscraper that ancient texts say angered the heavens. Picture a tower so tall it seemed to scrape the sky, a bold statement from a powerful king in an ancient land. This was the Etemenanki, a colossal ziggurat in the heart of Babylon, dedicated to the god Marduk. The name itself, Etemenanki, means temple of the foundation of heaven and earth. Think of it as an ancient skyscraper, built not with steel and glass, but with millions of baked bricks rising in stepped terraces towards the heavens. This wasn't just any temple. It was a symbol of Babylonian power and religious devotion. The most famous builder, King Nebuchadnezzar II, who reigned in the 6th century BC, poured immense resources into its construction and restoration. Imagine the bustling city of Babylon, one of the largest in the world at the time, with this towering structure at its center, its peak possibly adorned with a shrine gleaming under the Mesopotamian sun. Ancient writers, like the Greek historian Herodotus, described its immense size, though his exact measurements are debated by scholars. He spoke of a solid central tower with a ramp spiraling around its exterior, leading to the top. Some accounts suggest it rose to a height of around 91 meters, or about 300 feet, roughly the height of a 30-story modern building. Its base was said to be just as wide a massive square footprint in the sacred precinct of the city. Cuneiform tablet, known as the Azagila tablet, provides dimensions for the Etemenanki, detailing its 7 tiers. Archaeologists have found the massive foundations of the ziggurat, confirming its impressive scale. They've also uncovered bricks stamped with Nebuchadnezzar's name, a direct link to its legendary builder. The tower was more than just a religious site. It was an astronomical observatory, a place where priests tracked the movements of the stars and planets, crucial for their calendar and omens. So what happened to this mighty structure, often linked to the biblical story of the Tower of Babel? It wasn't a single dramatic event of divine wrath that brought it down. The Etemenanki suffered damage and rebuilding over centuries. When Alexander the Great conquered Babylon in 331 BC, he found the tower in a dilapidated state and reportedly planned to restore it. The task was so enormous, involving clearing away the rubble of the old structure, that it was never completed before his death. After Alexander, Babylon's importance waned. The Etemenanki, like many other great buildings of the city, fell into ruin. Its precious baked bricks were quarried by locals for new constructions, and slowly, the magnificent tower dissolved back into the earth from which it came. Today, only the footprint and scattered remnants testify to the ziggurat that once aimed to touch the sky, a lost testament to ambition and the passage of time. Number 9. Ancient engineers cut stones so perfectly you can't slip paper between them. High in the Andes Mountains of Bolivia, at an altitude of over 12,000 feet, lie the mysterious ruins of Tiwanaku and its even more enigmatic neighbor, Puma Punku. These sites whisper of an advanced civilization that flourished long before the Incas, a people who possessed stonemasonry skills that baffle engineers even today. Imagine walking among massive stone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, cut with such precision that the joints are perfectly flush without a speck of mortar. It said you couldn't slip a piece of paper or even a razor blade between some of these stones. The Tiwanaku civilization reached its peak between 500 and 900 AD, creating a ceremonial center that was influential throughout the southern Andes. The site includes impressive structures like the Acapana Pyramid, a stepped platform that likely served as a religious hub, and the colossal, an enclosure containing the famous Gateway of the Sun. This gateway, carved from a single block of andesite stone, features intricate iconography, including a central figure believed to be a sun god or creator deity. But it's Puma Punku, a short distance away, that truly stretches the imagination. Here you find H-shaped blocks, perfectly identical, almost as if they were mass-produced. The stones are made of hard diorite and andesite materials, incredibly difficult to work, even with modern tools. Yet these ancient craftsmen achieved smooth surfaces, sharp right angles, and intricate interior cuts. How did they do it? The Tiwanaku people didn't have written records as we know them, and they supposedly lacked iron tools. Theories range from the use of incredibly patient abrasion with harder stones and sand to unknown techniques that have been lost to time. Some stones have series of small, perfectly drilled holes, the purpose of which remains a puzzle. The sheer logistics are also mind-boggling. The andesite stone for many of these structures was quarried from sites about 60 miles away across Lake Titicaca. The diorite came from even further. How were these colossal blocks transported across rugged terrain and water to this high-altitude plateau? The scale of the labor, the precision of the craftsmanship, and the artistry involved are simply astounding for a civilization of that era. The decline of the Tiwanaku civilization around 1000 AD is another mystery. Evidence suggests a period of prolonged drought and climate change may have played a significant role, leading to agricultural collapse and the eventual abandonment of these incredible sites. When the Incas rose to prominence centuries later, they revered Tiwanaku as a sacred place of origins, but didn't know who had built it. For centuries, Puma Punku lay in ruins. Its perfectly cut stones toppled and scattered, perhaps by earthquakes or deliberate destruction after its abandonment. What remains are these silent, astonishing stones, a testament to a lost people whose engineering prowess continues to challenge our understanding of the ancient world. They are a profound reminder of the ingenuity that can arise and then vanish, leaving behind more questions than answers. Number 8. This mighty city was so feared, its conquerors tried to erase it from history. Imagine a thriving, powerful city, a jewel of the Mediterranean, a rival so formidable that one of the greatest empires in history dedicated itself to its utter destruction. This was Carthage, located in modern-day Tunisia, a city whose name once evoked images of immense wealth, maritime power, and a fierce, independent spirit. Founded by Phoenician colonists from Tyre around the 9th century BC, Carthage grew from a trading post into the capital of a vast commercial empire that controlled trade routes across the western Mediterranean. For centuries, Carthage stood as a major power, its ships dominating the seas, its merchants bringing back riches from distant lands. The city itself was a marvel, heavily fortified with massive walls that stretched for miles. Possessed two ingenious harbors, a rectangular commercial port bustling with ships from across the known world, and a circular inner harbor, the Kothan, exclusively for its powerful navy, capable of holding over 200 warships. At the center of the naval harbor was an island housing the admiral's command. Think of the organization, the resources, the sheer engineering skill required to build and maintain such a complex. Carthage's culture was distinct, influenced by its Phoenician heritage but developing its own unique character. They were skilled artisans, renowned for their metalwork, pottery, and dyed textiles. However, their most famous, or infamous, legacy involves their religion. Roman writers, their bitter enemies, accused the Carthaginians of practicing child sacrifice, particularly to the god Baal Hammon, identified by Romans with Saturn, and the goddess Tanit. Archaeological evidence from sites called tophets, containing urns with the cremated remains of infants and young animals, has fueled debate among scholars for decades. Were these dedicated burial grounds for children who died young, or evidence of ritual sacrifice? Truth remains contentious. The city's prosperity and strategic location inevitably brought it into conflict with the rising power of Rome. The Punic Wars, a series of 3 brutal conflicts fought between Rome and Carthage over more than a century, 264 BC to 146 BC, decided the fate of the Western Mediterranean. These wars saw legendary figures like Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general who famously crossed the Alps with elephants to invade Italy. Despite Carthaginian resilience and brilliant military tactics, Rome's relentless determination and superior resources eventually prevailed. The end of the Third Punic War in 146 BC was catastrophic for Carthage. After a long and brutal siege, the Roman general Scipio Aemilianus captured the city. What followed was a systematic destruction. Ancient sources claim the city burned for 17 days. Buildings were razed, its population massacred or enslaved. Legend has it that the Romans then plowed the site and sowed it with salt to ensure nothing would ever grow there again, a symbolic act to erase Carthage from existence. While the salting story is debated by modern historians, the totality of the destruction is not. For a century, the site of Punic Carthage lay largely desolate. Later, Rome, in an ironic twist, rebuilt a new city, Roman Carthage, on the ruins of its former enemy. This Roman city also became prosperous, but the original Punic civilization, its language, much of its literature, and many of its unique traditions were largely lost, known mostly through the biased accounts of its conquerors. Archaeologists today work to uncover the layers of Punic Carthage beneath the Roman ruins, piecing together fragments of a once mighty wonder that Rome tried but ultimately failed to completely wipe from memory. Number 7. 2 giant statues stood guard over a temple so big it's now just dust. Imagine 2 colossal stone figures seated like silent sentinels, gazing eastwards across the fertile plains of the Nile. These are the colossi of Memnon, 2 massive statues of the pharaoh Amenhotep III, who reigned during the 14th century BC, a golden age for ancient Egypt. Each statue, carved from single blocks of quartzite sandstone, stands about 60 feet tall and is estimated to weigh around 720 tons. They are an awe-inspiring sight even today, but what many don't realize is that these giants are merely the remnants, the gatekeepers, of something far vaster and almost entirely lost, Amenhotep III's mortuary temple. This wasn't just any temple. It was intended to be the largest and most opulent mortuary temple ever built in Egypt. Located on the west bank of the Nile at Thebes, modern Luxor, it was designed to ensure the pharaoh's eternal cult and celebrate his divine connection to the gods. Complex, known in ancient times as the House of Millions of Years, stretched over an enormous area, possibly larger than the famed Karnak temple on the East Bank. Picture vast courtyards filled with hundreds of statues, sphinx-lined avenues, towering pylons and halls supported by immense columns, all richly decorated with vibrant reliefs and hieroglyphs detailing the pharaoh's achievements and piety. 2 colossi that remain once flanked the main entrance to this sprawling, sacred precinct. Behind them, the temple complex would have unfolded in a series of grand architectural elements. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of multiple courtyards, including a great peristyle court with papyrus bundle columns and a solar court dedicated to the sun god Ra. Temple housed countless statues of Amenhotep III, his wife Queen Ti, and various deities, crafted from materials like granite, diorite, and alabaster. Some of these, recovered in fragments, hint at the artistic mastery of the era. One of the most intriguing aspects of the colossi is the legend of the singing statue. After an earthquake in 27 BC damaged the northern Colossus, it reportedly began to emit a sound often described as a whistling or singing at dawn. This phenomenon, likely caused by dew evaporating from the cracked stone as the sun rose and heated it, attracted travelers from across the Roman Empire, including emperors, who left inscriptions testifying to hearing the mysterious sound. The singing ceased after Emperor Septimius Severus repaired the statue around 199 AD. So what happened to this magnificent temple, once teeming with life and ritual? Its location on the Nile's floodplain, while agriculturally rich, made it vulnerable. Annual inundations gradually eroded its foundations and mud brick structures. Earthquakes, like the one in 27 BC, also took their toll. Over time, succeeding pharaohs, including Ramesses II, quarried stone from Amenhotep III's temple for their own building projects, a common practice in ancient Egypt. The mud brick walls and pylons dissolved, the stone blocks were carried away, and the grand courtyards and halls slowly vanished, buried under layers of silt and sand. Today, besides the two imposing colossi, the site is largely flat, with scattered stone fragments and the outlines of foundations being painstakingly excavated by archaeologists. These excavations continue to reveal the sheer scale and lost grandeur of Amenhotep III's vision. Colossi of Memnon stand as a poignant reminder of this vanished wonder. Two lonely giants guarding the memory of a temple complex so immense it was almost entirely reclaimed by the earth, leaving only whispers of its former glory carried on the desert wind. Number 6. An emperor built a pleasure palace with a revolving dining room and perfume showers. Imagine a palace so extravagant, so over the top that it became a symbol of an emperor's controversial reign and was eventually buried by his successors. This was the Domus Aurea, or Golden House, of Emperor Nero, built in the heart of Rome after the Great Fire of 64 AD, destroyed large parts of the city. This wasn't just a residence, it was a sprawling estate covering an estimated 100 to 300 acres, a miniature countryside complete with vineyards, pastures, woods filled with wild animals, and an enormous artificial lake right where the Colosseum would later stand. Nero, often portrayed as a tyrant, envisioned a palace that would surpass all others in luxury and technological marvels. The Golden House was designed by the architects Severus and Celer, who were known for their ingenuity. One of its most famed features, described by the Roman historian Suetonius, was a circular dining room whose ceiling supposedly revolved day and night like the heavens. While the exact mechanism is debated, the ambition is clear. Other rooms had ceilings inlaid with ivory panels that could slide back to shower guests with flowers and perfume. Walls were gilded with gold, hence the name Golden House, and adorned with precious gems, mother of pearl, and exquisite frescoes painted by the artist Fabullus. Fabullus was said to have painted only in his toga, even when working on scaffolding high above the ground. Such was his dedication to his art within this opulent setting. The scale was immense. Colossal bronze statue of Nero, over 100 feet tall and known as the Colossus Neronis, stood in the vestibule. Palace wasn't a single building but a series of pavilions, gardens, and porticos spread across several hills. It featured baths supplied with both seawater and sulfur water. The engineering required to create such a vast and complex estate with its artificial landscapes and advanced amenities was incredible for its time. It was a statement of Nero's power and his desire to live like a god on earth. However, the Domus Aurea was built on land, cleared by the Great Fire, and Nero's lavish spending on it while Rome was still recovering fueled public resentment. Many Romans felt he was indulging his personal fantasies at their expense. After Nero's suicide in 68 AD and the tumultuous year of the 4 emperors that followed, the new Flavian dynasty sought to distance themselves from Nero's memory and return parts of the Domus Aurea's land to public use. This process of damnatio memoriae, or condemning Nero's memory, led to the Golden House's demise. The artificial lake was drained, and on its site, Emperor Vespasian began construction of the Flavian Amphitheater, now known as the Colosseum, a place for public entertainment. Other parts of the Domus Aurea were stripped of their valuable materials, filled with earth, and built over. Emperor Trajan, for example, built his magnificent baths over a section of Nero's palace. For centuries, the Golden House lay buried and forgotten, its wonders hidden beneath later Roman structures. Its rediscovery was accidental. In the late 15th century, a young Roman reportedly fell through a fissure on the Esquiline Hill and found himself in a strange cave, decorated with painted figures. Soon, artists like Raphael and Michelangelo were being lowered on ropes into these subterranean grottos to study the ancient Roman frescoes. This grotesque style of art, inspired by these underground discoveries, became highly influential during the Renaissance. It wasn't until much later that these caves were identified as the buried rooms of Nero's infamous Golden House. Today, parts of the Domus Aurea have been excavated and are accessible, offering a tantalizing glimpse into the sheer opulence and artistic brilliance of a palace designed to be a wonder of its world, only to be deliberately erased and rediscovered as a beautiful ghostly ruin. Number 5. Was this sprawling, colorful palace home to a mythical beast? Journey back over 3,500 years to the island of Crete, the heart of the enigmatic Minoan civilization. Here, on a gentle hill at Knossos, stood a magnificent structure unlike anything else in the Bronze Age Aegean world. This was the Palace of Knossos, a sprawling complex of rooms, corridors, courtyards, and staircases, so intricate and vast that it's believed to have inspired the Greek myth of King Minos, his labyrinth, and the fearsome Minotaur, a creature half man, half bull. When British archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans began excavating Knossos in the early 20th century, he uncovered a civilization of remarkable sophistication and artistry. Palace wasn't just a royal residence, it was a vibrant, administrative, religious, and economic center, covering several acres. It wasn't fortified with massive walls like Mycenaean citadels on mainland Greece, suggesting the Minoans relied on their naval power, their thalassocracy, for protection. The architecture was unique, featuring large central courts, light wells to illuminate inner rooms, advanced drainage systems with terracotta pipes, and distinctive red-painted columns that tapered downwards, wider at the top than the bottom. Imagine wandering through its maze-like corridors passing storerooms, filled with giant pithoi jars that once held oil, wine, and grain. Picture the vivid frescoes that adorned the walls, depicting scenes of nature, dolphins, lilies, and griffins, as well as ritual activities like bull leaping where young men and women somersaulted over the backs of charging bulls. These colorful paintings provide precious insights into Minoan life, their connection to the sea, and their seemingly peaceful art-loving culture. The famous throne room at Knossos, with its alabaster throne flanked by griffin frescoes, still evokes a sense of ancient power and mystery. The palace was built and modified over several centuries, from around 1900 BC until its final destruction around 1375 BC or later. It suffered several destructions, possibly due to earthquakes, as Crete is in a seismically active region, and was rebuilt each time, often on an even grander scale. The Minoans developed a script known as Linear A, which remains undeciphered, adding another layer of mystery to their civilization. What language did did they speak? What were their deepest beliefs? The answers are still locked within these unread tablets. Arthur Evans's reconstructions at Knossos, using concrete and modern materials, have been controversial among archaeologists. While they help visitors visualize the palace's original multi-story grandeur, some argue they went too far, blurring the line between ancient remains and modern interpretation. Nevertheless, his work brought the Minoan civilization, previously only hinted at in Greek myths, vividly to life. The final destruction of Knossos and the decline of Minoan civilization are subjects of ongoing debate. Theories include invasion by the Mycenaeans from mainland Greece, who adapted the Minoan script into Linean B, which has been deciphered and represents an early form of Greek, internal strife, or the devastating volcanic eruption on the nearby island of Thera, modern Santorini. While the Thera eruption was once thought to be the primary cause, current dating suggests it occurred earlier, though it may have weakened the Minoans economically and socially, making them vulnerable. What remains of Knossos today is a captivating ruin, a partial reconstruction that hints at its former splendor. It stands as a testament to a brilliant and artistic Bronze Age culture that flourished for centuries, creating a unique architectural marvel that continues to intrigue us with its beauty, its complexity, and the enduring legend of its labyrinthine corridors. It's a lost world that still guards many of its secrets. Number 4. 4,500 years ago. This city had toilets and sewers. Then everyone disappeared. Imagine a bustling city in what is now Pakistan, built over 4,500 years ago, with streets laid out in a grid pattern, houses made of standardized baked bricks, and an incredibly advanced system of water supply and sanitation, including some of the world's earliest known toilets and covered drains. This was Mohenjo-Daro, one of the largest settlements of the ancient Indus Valley civilization, a contemporary of ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, yet strikingly different. Mohenjo-Daro, meaning Mound of the Dead Men in Sindhi, thrived between approximately 2,500 BC and 1900 BC. It was a meticulously planned urban center, proving a remarkable level of civic organization. The city was divided into two main parts: a lower town where most of the population lived in multi-roomed houses, often with inner courtyards and private wells, and a raised citadel area, built on an artificial mound which housed public buildings. One of the most famous structures on the citadel is the Great Bath, a large rectangular tank made of finely fitted bricks, lined with bitumen, natural tar, to make it waterproof. Scholars believe it was used for ritual bathing or purification ceremonies, highlighting the importance of water and cleanliness in their culture. What's truly astounding about Mohenjo-Daro and other Indus cities like Harappa is their sophisticated urban infrastructure. Many houses had bathrooms connected to a complex network of covered drains that ran along the streets, carrying wellhead away from residential areas. They also had rubbish chutes and public wells. This level of attention to public health and sanitation was unparalleled in much of the ancient world at that time. The bricks used for construction were remarkably uniform in size and shape, suggesting a standardized system of weights and measures and centralized planning. Despite these advancements, the Indus Valley civilization remains shrouded in mystery. Their script, found on thousands of small seals, usually depicting animals like bulls, elephants, and unicorns alongside symbols, has yet to be deciphered. This means we have no royal inscriptions, no lengthy religious texts, no historical chronicles written by the people themselves to tell us about their kings, their gods, or their society's structure. Unlike Egypt and Mesopotamia, archaeologists haven't found grand palaces for rulers or monumental temples dedicated to specific deities in Mohenjo-Daro, leading some to suggest a more egalitarian or decentralized form of governance. The small, exquisitely carved seals and pottery show a high degree of craftsmanship, but the focus seems to be on everyday life and trade rather than glorifying rulers or gods. The most enduring puzzle is the decline and eventual abandonment of Mohenjo-Daro and other Indus cities around 1900 BC. There's no clear evidence of a massive invasion or conquest that wiped them out. Instead, the city seems to have gradually fallen into disrepair and depopulation over several centuries. Various theories have been proposed. Catastrophic floods from the Indus River, a shift in the river's course, disrupting agriculture, prolonged drought and climate change impacting water resources, deforestation, or perhaps internal social unrest or disease. It's likely a combination of factors contributed to their demise. When archaeologists rediscovered Mohenjo-Daro in the 1920s, they unearthed the ghost city, remarkably well preserved beneath layers of earth, but silent about who its people were and why they vanished. It stands as a powerful reminder of a sophisticated urban civilization that rose, flourished with incredible ingenuity, and then faded away, leaving behind a legacy of advanced planning and an enduring enigma that continues to challenge historians and archaeologists. The people of Mohenjo-Daro built a wonder of urban living, then simply walked away from it, taking their stories with them. Number 3. Said to house the Ark of the Covenant, this temple was gold-plated and utterly destroyed. Imagine a temple of legendary splendor, the spiritual heart of a nation said to be so holy that God's presence dwelled within its innermost sanctum. This was the Temple of Solomon, also known as the First Temple in Jerusalem. Its construction, traditionally dated to the 10th century BC by King Solomon, son of David, marked a pivotal moment in ancient Israelite history, centralizing worship and symbolizing the covenant between God and his people. While no direct archaeological remains of Solomon's temple have been definitively identified, largely because its presumed location on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem is an active and sensitive religious site today. Its description in the Hebrew Bible paints a picture of breathtaking magnificence. According to the biblical accounts in the books of Kings and Chronicles, the temple was not enormous in size compared to some ancient Near Eastern temples, but it was famed for the richness of its materials and the artistry of its craftsmanship. It was constructed using fine cedar wood from Lebanon, overlaid with pure gold. Imagine walls, floors, and even the altar gleaming with gold. The entrance was flanked by 2 colossal bronze pillars named Jachin and Boaz, whose exact purpose and symbolism are still debated by scholars. Inside, the temple was divided into several sections: an outer court, a main hall called the Hekal, or Holy Place, and the innermost sanctuary, the Debir, or Holy of Holies. The Holy of Holies was the most sacred part of the temple, a perfect cube believed to be the dwelling place of God's presence. It was said to house the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred chest containing the stone tablets inscribed with the 10 Commandments. Only the high priest could enter the Holy of Holies, and only once a year, on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. The temple was not just a place of sacrifice and worship. It was a symbol of national identity, divine protection, and the enduring relationship between God and Israel. The glory of Solomon's temple, however, was not to last forever. After centuries of religious and political turmoil, the kingdom of Judah was conquered by the Neo-Babylonian Empire. In 587 or 586 BC, Nebuchadnezzar II, the Babylonian king who also rebuilt the Etemenanki ziggurat, besieged Jerusalem, captured the city, and utterly destroyed the temple. Its sacred vessels were carried off to Babylon, and a significant portion of the population was exiled. This event was a profound trauma, marking a turning point in Jewish history and faith. Decades later, after the Persian conquest of Babylon, the exiled Jews were allowed to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. The Second Temple, completed around 516 BC, stood on the same site. While it may have initially lacked the legendary splendor of Solomon's original, It became the center of Jewish life and worship for nearly 6 centuries. King Herod the Great, in the 1st century BC, undertook a massive renovation and expansion of the Second Temple, turning it into one of the most magnificent architectural complexes of the ancient world, renowned for its beauty and scale. But this grand Herodian temple also met a tragic end. During the First Jewish-Roman War in 70 AD, the Roman army, led by Titus, besieged Jerusalem and, like the Babylonians before them, destroyed the temple. The destruction was so complete that, according to the historian Josephus, an eyewitness, the Romans dug up the city from its foundations. All that remains today of Herod's temple complex is the Western Wall, a retaining wall of the Temple Mount platform, which has become the holiest site in Judaism for prayer and pilgrimage. Temple of Solomon, a wonder of devotion and craftsmanship, and its successor, the Second Temple, are thus doubly lost, existing now primarily in sacred texts, historical accounts, and the enduring memory of a people, their physical grandeur, erased by the tides of conquest. Number 2. These city walls were so thick, chariots raced on top of them. Imagine a city so formidably defended that its walls were themselves considered one of the great wonders of the ancient world, long before the official 7 were widely listed. This was Babylon, the legendary capital of Mesopotamia, located on the banks of the Euphrates River in modern-day Iraq. While the Hanging Gardens, if they existed in Babylon, and the Etemenanki ziggurat often steal the spotlight, the sheer scale and engineering of Babylon's fortifications under King Nebuchadnezzar II, reigned 605 to 562 BC, were a marvel in their own right. Nebuchadnezzar II, a powerful and ambitious ruler, transformed Babylon into the most magnificent city of its time. He understood that a great capital needed impenetrable defenses. The city was protected by a double line of massive walls. The inner wall, named Eber Enlil, was incredibly thick. The outer wall, Nemeti Enlo, was also formidable, and between them ran a wide moat fed by the Euphrates River, adding another layer of protection. Some ancient writers, like Herodotus, the Greek historian from the 5th century BC, gave astonishing and possibly exaggerated dimensions for these walls. Herodotus claimed the main walls were so broad that a 4-horse chariot could turn around on top of them. He described their height and length in terms that made them seem almost superhuman constructions. While modern archaeological findings suggest Herodotus may have inflated the numbers, they confirm that the walls were indeed exceptionally large and impressive. Construction involved millions of baked bricks, a more durable material than the sun-dried bricks common in the region, held together with bitumen, a natural asphalt that acted as mortar and waterproofing. The scale of labor required to produce these bricks, transport them, and erect such colossal fortifications is hard to comprehend. These weren't just plain brick walls. Sections were adorned with vibrant glazed bricks depicting bulls and mushroom dragons, similar to those found on the famous Ishtar Gate. The Ishtar Gate, one of 8 monumental gateways that pierced the inner walls, was itself a wonder of color and design. But it was just one part of this vast defensive system. The walls were punctuated by numerous watchtowers, providing strategic vantage points for defenders. Beyond their defensive purpose, these walls were a powerful statement of Babylonian might and engineering prowess. They enclosed a vast urban area, including palaces, temples, residential quarters, and the sacred processional way, which ran from the Ishtar Gate to the Esagila Temple complex and the Etemenanki ziggurat. Imagine approaching Babylon from afar, seeing these immense fortifications rising from the plains, a seemingly unbreachable bastion of civilization. For centuries, they protected the city and its inhabitants, contributing to Babylon's reputation as an almost mythical place of power and splendor. So what became of these legendary walls that once dominated the Mesopotamian landscape? Like many ancient megastructures, their demise was gradual. After Babylon was conquered by Cyrus the Great of Persia in 539 BC, the city, while initially treated well, began a slow decline in importance as other capitals rose. The walls, no longer maintained with the same imperial resources, started to decay. Alexander the Great, who conquered Babylon later, recognized its strategic importance, but after his death, his successors fought over his empire, and Babylon suffered. Over centuries, the elements took their toll. More significantly, the valuable baked bricks of the walls and other Babylonian structures became a quarry for local builders, used to construct new towns and villages nearby. The once mighty ramparts were dismantled, brick by brick, slowly dissolving back into the landscape. Archaeologists, starting with Robert Koldewey in the early 20th century, have excavated sections of these walls, confirming their massive scale and sophisticated construction. While they may not have been quite as high or thick as Herodotus claimed, they were undoubtedly one of the greatest engineering achievements of the ancient world. A lost wonder whose remains still whisper of Babylon's golden age and the incredible ambition of its kings. Number 1. Imagine every book in the world gathered in one place, then lost forever. Picture a beacon of knowledge in the ancient world, a place where scholars gathered, debated, and had access to a collection of scrolls that aimed to encompass all of human wisdom. This was the Great Library of Alexandria, established in Egypt during the Hellenistic period, probably in the early 3rd century BC under Ptolemy I Soter, or his son Ptolemy II, Philadelphus. It wasn't just a library in the modern sense of a building with shelves. It was part of a larger research institution called the Mausoleum, or Shrine of the Muses, which included lecture halls, laboratories, observatories, gardens, and a zoo. The ambition behind the Library of Alexandria was breathtaking: to collect copies of all known books, which at the time were scrolls, from every corner of the world. Agents were sent out to buy scrolls, and ships docking in Alexandria's harbor were reportedly searched, their books confiscated and copied, with the copies returned to the owners and the originals kept in the library. This aggressive acquisition policy led to an unparalleled collection. Estimates of the number of scrolls vary wildly, from 40,000 to over 400,000, or even 700,000 at its peak. These scrolls covered every field of knowledge: literature, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, history, philosophy, and more. Imagine the intellectual ferment within the Mausoleum and its library. Some of the greatest minds of antiquity worked or studied here. Euclid, the father of geometry, likely taught in Alexandria. Eratosthenes, who accurately calculated the circumference of the earth, was a chief librarian. Archimedes, the brilliant mathematician and inventor, may have studied there. Callimachus, a poet and scholar, created the Pinax, a 120-volume catalog of the library's holdings, one of the earliest examples of systematic bibliography. The library was a vibrant center for scholarship translation. The Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, was said to have been produced here, and the preservation of texts that might otherwise have been lost. It was, in essence, the intellectual capital of the Hellenistic world. Tragic part of the library's story is its loss. There was no single dramatic event that destroyed it entirely, despite popular myths. Instead, its decline and the destruction of its collections seem to have occurred over several centuries through a series of unfortunate events and changing political tides. One often cited incident is the fire set by Julius Caesar's forces in 48 BC during his war in Alexandria. While some ancient sources claim the library burned, others suggest it was warehouses near the docks containing scrolls destined for the library that were destroyed. It's likely the main library suffered some damage but survived. Later, In the 3rd century AD, the Bruchian quarter, where the main library and Malseon were located, was severely damaged during fighting under Emperor Aurelian. This probably marked a significant blow. There was also a daughter library, located in the Serapeum, a temple dedicated to the god Serapis in another part of Alexandria. This collection also faced destruction. In 391 AD, Emperor Theodosius I issued decrees outlawing pagan practices. Patriarch Theophilus of Alexandria, acting on these decrees, incited a mob to destroy the Serapeum, and its scrolls were likely dispersed or destroyed at this time. The final, often blamed event is the Arab conquest of Alexandria in 642 AD. A much later story, which many historians now doubt, claims that Caliph Omar ordered the scrolls to be burned for heating the city's baths, arguing that if they agreed with the Quran, they were redundant, and if they disagreed, they were heretical. Most scholars consider this account apocryphal, a legend created centuries after the event. By the 7th century, the great collections were likely already long gone or severely diminished. The loss of the Library of Alexandria represents an incalculable cultural tragedy. How many unique ancient texts containing knowledge of history, science, literature, and philosophy vanished forever? We can only speculate. While some works were copied and preserved elsewhere, countless others are known only through fragments or references in surviving texts. The Library of Alexandria remains a potent symbol of the pursuit of knowledge and the fragility of cultural heritage. A lost wonder whose disappearance still echoes through the centuries as a profound intellectual void, a ghost of what humanity once knew and then tragically forgot.